Countries such as Nigeria and the Democratic Republic of Congo have some of the largest natural resource deposits in the world, and yet, their economy suffers tremendously when compared with countries having fewer or very little natural resources. The phenomenon baffled researchers when resource-poor countries such as Korea, Taiwan, Singapore and Hong Kong emerged as world star players, while extremely resource-rich nations such as Venezuela suffered. 97 developing countries were studied over a 20-year period, and the results would amaze you. The more natural resources they had and exported, the lower was the economic growth. Countries with less or no natural resources surprisingly grew the fastest. During the 18th century, Germany, Britain, and the United States developed tremendously as a result of their natural resource reserves. Back then, transport costs were very high, and so having your own resources gave you an edge. However, due to revolutions in global transport and energy today, countries can easily import these commodities from outside as well. We see countries like Japan and Korea become world-class steel producers despite their complete dependence on iron ore imports. So if having natural resources does not give countries a significant advantage today, is it actually disadvantageous? Well, yes. Let's look at a few examples. Trinidad and Tobago is a small nation rich in oil reserves. As a result of the oil boom, wages in the oil sector here are much higher than that of manufacturing or agriculture. Everyone wants to work in oil, and industries like agriculture are looked down upon as a place to work if you haven't made it in life. The country currently imports close to $1 billion worth of food products a year. If we board a ferry from Trinidad and Tobago and travel just a couple of hours, we reach the country that has the largest oil reserves in the world, Venezuela. Oil was discovered here in the early 1900s, and the country soon became the largest oil exporter in the world. As a result, the value of their currency increased tremendously. Exports of other industries such as agriculture and manufacturing began to die, as countries now found it very expensive to import from Venezuela. With 96% of export earnings coming from oil, the economy became very vulnerable to the smallest changes in oil prices. A small increase spread cheer while a small decline signaled doom. Now, with falling oil prices, bad economic policy and rampant corruption, the country faces the largest economic, social and political crisis in the world today. Another common aspect that plagues these nations is the lack of entrepreneurship. With a booming natural resource sector, wages tend to go up in this sector. With high wages to be earned, people now prefer to work instead of taking a risk and starting their own business. This eventually leads to the death of innovation and hence overall development as well. Nauru is an island country in the Central Pacific. Its inhabitants during the 70s were amongst the richest people on earth, thanks to their large phosphate deposits. A majority of individuals were happily employed in the phosphate industry and did not see the need to innovate at all. Over time, their reserves ran out and the citizens had nothing to fall back on. The country today suffers with a staggering unemployment rate of over 90%. A few countries, however, have managed to keep the curse at bay. Norway had the foresight to set up a wealth fund in 1990, which is worth $900 billion today. During times of low oil prices, the fund is used as a cushion to balance trade deficits. Saudi Arabia and Malaysia are extremely resource-rich and have been able to offset the curse to some extent due to a long tradition of open trade. The royal family has recently pledged to gradually wean the country off oil and also focus on the growth of other industries. Another rare phenomenon is seen in Iran. In spite of being extremely resource-rich, manufacturing exports here have actually gone up. This is due to the fact that the government kept energy prices such as electricity very cheap for companies and provided these companies with a competitive advantage in foreign markets. In the absence of strong strategy, forward-looking policies, and alternate sources of revenue, many more nations may be headed towards disaster.